Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission is always the same. We take your source material, the dense research, the profound philosophy, the complex data, and we extract the absolute core of the knowledge you need. We turn insight into instant understanding.
And today, we are embarking on, well, one of our most unusual yet profoundly rich deep dives. The sources you've provided aren't technical papers or, geopolitical analyses.
Is it all?
They're excerpts from a work of mystical interpretation called The Union of Faith and Pure Abandonment.
And this text gives us an extraordinarily detailed allegorical reading of two biblical chapters right next to each other. Genesis 23, which is all about the death of Sarah.
And Genesis 24, which details the search for a wife for Isaac. So we're not exploring history here. This is a spiritual map.
A map of the inner life.
Exactly. The listener who shared this material, they recognize that inside this narrative is the hidden architecture of the soul's deepest journey toward union with the divine.
So our mission today is to transform these ancient figures into, concrete spiritual milestones.
Yes, so you can trace the path from the very beginning of faith to that final state of rest.
Okay, let's set the stage then, because the characters are everything here. We have to know who's who. First, Abraham.
Abraham is the figurehead for faith itself. He's the foundation of the whole thing.
Right. And Sarah, his wife.
She represents abandonment, or you could say self-denial.
Okay, faith and abandonment. Their son, Isaac, born so late in their lives.
He is the inner life. He's the son of faith, the result of that union.
And then there's this old, trusted servant who goes on the big mission.
That's prudence, or holy wisdom, a really key player.
And the final piece of the puzzle, the woman he's searching for, Rebekah.
She has to be.
Pure love. She is the culmination of the entire journey. And if we can just hold those definitions in our minds, the story in Genesis becomes a blueprint for internal transformation.
A blueprint that starts with a huge, and a really unsettling paradox. We have to start with the death of the one who represents self-denial. Yes. Section 1, the paradox of death and the sovereignty of faith from Genesis 23.
So Sarah, who is abandonment, lives to be 127, a long, effective life. But then she dies. And I have to ask, if the goal is a life of total abandonment to God, why does the spiritual faculty of abandonment have to die? Especially right after it's produced the inner life, Isaac.
Right.
That seems like destroying the very tool that got you where you are, doesn't it?
It does. And that is the cornerstone of the whole nuance in this mystical text. It really challenges our normal understanding of spiritual effort.
So what's really going on? What actually dies?
That's the key. The source says this death is absolutely necessary, but only after the secret, profound work of self-denial is already done. The essence of abandonment doesn't perish.
Okay.
On the contrary, the text says its essence becomes purer, deeper, and completely hidden in God.
So if the core of self-denial is still there, what is it that Abraham is mourning? What's the thing that's lost?
What's lost is the perceivable part, and crucially, the ease of action that came from that self-denial.
The ease of action. What do you mean by that?
Well, think about the beginning of a spiritual journey. When you first commit to self-denial, it's a conscious thing. It's an active, often difficult effort.
Yeah, you feel the resistance.
Yeah.
And you feel the success when you overcome it.
Exactly. That conscious, active effort, that feeling of, I'm successfully abandoning myself, that's a form of spiritual self-reliance. And for the soul to achieve complete union, that has to stop.
So abandonment dies because the soul had gotten comfortable, maybe even a little proud of its ability to perform self-denial.
Precisely. The method itself becomes the final barrier to the goal.
So if I can still consciously do abandonment, I'm still relying on my own spiritual muscles, not totally on God.
You've got it. The source material is, it's totally unequivocal on this. He says when abandonment dies, the person literally loses the ability to keep abandoning themselves as a conscious act.
Wow.
They enter a state described as complete poverty, a loss in God.
Yeah. That sounds just devastatingly difficult to go through. I mean, if your primary tool for spiritual progress suddenly just snaps and you can't feel that conscious effort anymore, I'd imagine a profound sense of spiritual homelessness.
And the allegory captures that perfectly. The text says Abraham wept for Sarah. So initially, the soul is thrown into distress, into tears.
You feel like you've lost your most trusted tool.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sense of control, even control over the act of surrendering, it's gone. It can feel like you're going backwards. The text says the soul finds it agonizing because it doesn't recognize itself anymore. The virtuous activity it knew is gone.
So what resolves that pain? How do you get through that? Is it just a matter of enduring it?
It is, but with a massive shift in understanding. The suffering, it says, only stops when the person becomes firmly established in this complete poverty.
So you have to accept it.
You have to realize that while you no longer feel abandonment, you can't just switch it on. The reality of it is purer than ever before. It's moved from being your personal effort to being a hidden, constant reality in God. The work is over.
That's a beautiful way to put it. So once that perfected abandonment is hidden away, the focus shifts entirely to the one who's left. Faith. Abraham.
Yes, and the text uses this moment to draw a really sharp distinction.
Between what?
Between worldly authority and true spiritual sovereignty. Section 1.2, defining Abraham's status.
Okay.
The contrast between princes of the world and princes of God is vital here. A worldly prince, no matter how powerful, is basically a slave to their possessions, their land.
Their power is external, conditional.
Exactly. If they lose their wealth, they can't survive. They can't defend themselves.
But Abraham, the prince of God, is called an alien and a sojourner over and over. He doesn't own any land. He has to buy a plot just to bury Sarah.
Right.
Yet the local people, the Hittites, they call him a prince of God among us.
And that's the core of spiritual sovereignty. Abraham has this specific, astonishing authority that is completely independent of the local powers. He's not governed by them, but his influence governs them.
Where does that power come from then?
The source says it stems from bearing the mark of divinity. He's like a living conduit of divine authority, which is mysterious and baffling to people who meet him, but they respect it universally.
So the power isn't from territory. It's from detachment.
Exactly. Yeah. Abraham's broad faith deliberately made him an alien. He gave up his ancestral home, his potential kingdom, so that he would have no kingdom but the kingdom of heaven.
He stripped himself of external property.
So that God himself would become his inheritance. It's the ultimate counterintuitive economy.
It completely flips worldly logic on its head. The world says, accumulate, get more to be secure. The path of faith says, surrender everything to gain true sovereignty.
And that's the core spiritual principle laid bare. The attribute of faith is to become poor in order to become rich, to strip yourself of everything so that God becomes your wealth. We see it everywhere in Scripture, but the source grounds it right here.
And Abraham demonstrates it. He lives it.
Yes. The Lord is the portion of my inheritance and of my cup, which then inevitably leads to, the lines have fallen to me in pleasant places. Riches are guaranteed, but they're internal and divinely secured, not, externally precarious.
So this perfected faith, both poor and sovereign, now has its next big mission, securing the next generation. The inner life, Isaac, needs to unite with pure love, Rebekah.
Which moves us into section 2, the critical mission of Genesis 24, setting the terms for the union.
And it begins with blessings, right? Genesis 24.1 says, Abraham was very old, and the Lord had blessed him in all things.
Yeah, and that's not just a polite introduction. It's key.
How does the text interpret that phrase, blessed in all things?
Because Abraham's essence is now united with God, his mature faith just brings forth every blessing imaginable. The source explains that a person united with God is loaded with all good things in God himself.
It's a passive kind of wealth, the wealth of a soul at rest.
Exactly. But the ultimate blessing, this union with God represented by Isaac's marriage, that's held back. It's only given when the person is very old.
Allegorically, that means it's not for the beginner.
Right. It's the reward for maturity, for completeness in the path of faith. It only happens after the necessary death of that conscious effort we talked about, Sarah. The soul has to be ready to receive pure love.
And before the journey even begins, faith sets a non-negotiable term, a refusal to marry the world.
The source explicitly says that Canaan, the land they're in, symbolizes this corrupted world.
So no alliances in Canaan. The inner life can't mix with corruption.
Absolutely not. But faith does seek a union. It looks back toward its original lineage in Mesopotamia. The people there are devout, they fear God, but they're still walking a complex and active path.
Okay, so why is Mesopotamia an option, but Canaan is totally forbidden? What's the real difference?
The distinction is vital. Canaan is characterized by corruption, by sin. It's fundamentally opposed to the divine path. Mesopotamia is characterized by complexity and active striving.
So it's not sinful, just inefficient.
That's a great way to put it. Faith can refine complexity. It can draw a gentle soul out of that external striving and into unity. But it can't purify corruption. It's looking for love in a soul that already reveres God, even if that soul is using complicated methods right now.
So faith sets the mission. And to make sure it's executed perfectly, Abraham calls on his most trusted figure, the old servant, prudence.
Yes, or holy wisdom. And the text calls prudence the first servant of faith, initially the most necessary one.
Why is that?
Because holy prudence is what guides the soul to deny itself in the first place. It's that rational recognition of, you know what, I can't manage my own affairs.
It's intellectual honesty.
Right, and that leads to the initial total abandonment to Sarah. The ancients called this the beginning of the knowledge of the holy.
That sounds completely positive. Prudence is the part of us that sees the need to surrender. But the source gives this huge warning here. It says that same prudence can become extremely harmful later on. Why would that be?
This is a critical point, and it's easy to miss. Once the soul is established in abandonment, that initial good prudence can regress. It can morph into human foresight and deep deliberation.
So the same faculty that said, I am incapable, I must surrender, now says to say, what?
It starts to argue, okay, now that I've surrendered, I need to strategically manage my life and my spiritual progress.
It's the intellectual trap of trying to plan the unplanned.
Precisely. And if the inner life, Isaac, allies with this rogue prudence, this human foresight, it creates what the source calls the most hateful mixture of all mixtures.
A mixture of divine unity and human calculation.
Yes. That's why Abraham demands this absolute binding oath from prudence. Never allow Isaac to ally with the world, and crucially, never let him return to the complex path.
And that demand immediately creates anxiety for prudence.
Yeah.
Right? The servant asks, what if the woman is unwilling to follow me? Should I take your son back there?
Prudence, being pragmatic, suggests regression as a backup plan.
And faith's command is just, absolute. Be careful, do not take my son back there. It's an irreversible vow.
Faith knows with total certainty that God pulled them out of that complex active path for a reason. Once the soul has been led into the path of interior rest, there is no going back, no matter what. The promised land is the land of rest in God.
But prudence is just a servant, dealing with real-world uncertainty. A woman might just say no. How can faith guarantee this mission will succeed?
Faith assures the servant that an angel will be sent ahead of him, and the source identifies this angel as providence.
Divine arrangement.
Exactly. The spiritual union is guided by God's prearrangement, which sets the stage. It orchestrates everything. Prudence just needs to act, not calculate.
And that clarifies the oath beautifully. The oath only binds him if she consents. If she refuses, he's free, but the one condition remains absolute.
The soul chosen for rest must never, ever return to complexity. For any reason. It solidifies that irreversible commitment.
With the term set, we move into section 3, the journey of prudence and the discovery of love. The servant heads out with 10 camels loaded with riches.
Such a rich allegorical setup. The 10 camels symbolize the 10 commandments.
Okay, so this reframes how we should see the law on this path.
Right. Those who walk Isaac's path, they observe the commandments much more perfectly, but they do it from the inside, spontaneously. It's not about following the letter of the law externally.
It's internalized. And the cargo, the riches of faith.
That cargo represents all the graces that come with this path. Charity, faith, hope, all the virtues. These riches are carried by the law, by the camels.
And what's their purpose?
They serve to cover, and this is crucial, to sweeten the rigor of the law. The law isn't meant to be a burden. It's supported and transformed by grace.
And all this wealth is transparent, is meant to attract the bride.
Exactly. It shows her how profitable and how easy this path is. It's simple, but so rich. And the destination is Mesopotamia, where people revere God but are still stuck on that complex path.
So the goal is to draw love out of all that activity and into the kingdom of peace.
Mm-hmm. And the servant's timing is precise. He arrives in the evening.
Which spiritually means what?
It means he arrives at the end of the soul's day of activity, right when she is about to rest. This shows how providence directs people to the simple path. It often happens after long striving, when the soul is just tired of its own restless activity.
And the location is just as symbolic. He's near the well.
The well is where the soul strains to pray. It's where she's trying to draw the waters of grace through her own effort. It's the site of striving.
And in total contrast to that striving, the law, the camels, are made to rest outside the city.
A magnificent image. Grace from passive faith is given when the person is at rest, outside the noise and complexity of their own activity. The camels, the law, have to stop their weary journey before the real gift can arrive.
And even prudence, the one on the mission, shows total reliance on faith. He prays for success only in the name of Abraham.
Prudence knows that faith obtains everything. The servant, though he's acting wisely, appeals not to his own cunning, but to the established merit of faith. This is the purification of prudence.
Okay, so now we get to the moment of truth. The condition for identifying the bride. The servant asks God to point her out from among all the others at the well.
He asks for a sign, and the condition he sets is described as entirely beautiful and marvelous. He understands that the only way to lead a soul out of complexity into union with God is through love.
But not just any love. It'd have to be a very specific kind of love.
An abundant love, one that's capable of watering the flocks of Jesus Christ that are contained in Abraham's spiritual lineage. It has to be generous, fruitful.
And the test is that generosity. She has to be willing to do more than what's asked.
Yes, she has to serve the servant and the camels.
That's the genius of the test, isn't it? The servant is the practical direction of faith. The camels are the law-heavy, demanding.
Exactly. If she is willing to serve the law to water the camels until they are satisfied out of spontaneous, abundant love, it proves she's the one. It shows her love naturally sweetens the demands of the path.
So the ultimate goal is for Isaac's wife to become the mother and nurse for the people of faith.
She has to be love itself, an excellent symbol of love from which grace just flows out to everyone else. The mission is defined.
And the answer comes immediately, which brings us to section 4, pure love manifested and the gifts of the path.
The response is characterized by divine speed. Rebekah appears right away before he even finishes praying. It just shows how swiftly God answers prayers that are rooted entirely in faith.
And her description is so full of meaning, extremely beautiful.
Because spiritually nothing is more desirable than love. And she's a virgin, which confirms that love is always pure. It originates from God. It maintains its chastity even when it's dealing with the world.
It's untainted by the complexity of her current path.
Right. And her action at the well is critical. She goes down to the well and comes up full.
And this embodies 2 virtues.
2 essential virtues for the soul destined for union: love and humility. Her love means she is full of grace for others, holding nothing for herself. Her humility means she is constantly emptying that grace, returning it to the source as purely as she received it.
Like a spring. The more it gives away, the more it receives.
Perfectly put. And her generosity is immediate. She doesn't hesitate. She doesn't calculate the effort. She just draws water for the man and for all 10 thirsty camels.
And that confirms it. She was love. She waters the law, the camels, until they're satisfied, which illustrates that the law is empty and rigid without love.
Love gives life to the law. It fulfills its rigor without any complaint.
Then there's this amazing moment of pause. Genesis 24:21 says the servant looked at her intently, saying nothing.
This is the purification of prudence in action. Even the active servants of faith have to be characterized by contemplation. He seeks clarity not by asking a bunch of questions or deliberating, but by remaining at rest.
He's waiting for providence to confirm the sign.
Exactly. It's a huge lesson on how to resolve doubt. Instead of ramping up human activity when you're confused, the better path is silent observation. Let the truth confirm itself.
Prudence has to learn to stop relying on his own foresight.
He holds back until he has that absolute internal certainty that this is the one.
And once he's certain, he gives her the gifts, which the source calls the rules of the inner life: gold earrings and gold bracelets.
The gold symbolizes the purity needed for this path, but let's really focus on the tension between these 2 gifts.
Okay, first the gold earrings. They're singular, light, 1 shekel each.
The earrings signify that the soul primarily needs to cultivate quiet listening. This is the fundamental practice of her destination. The gold insists on pure intention, and the weight 1 shekel means listening only to God. Singular focus, pure attention.
So the internal practice is simple, solitary.
But then, right after that, he gives her heavy gold bracelets, many shekels, for her hands.
Which provides the balance.
It does. It highlights the complexity of love's application. While your attention has to be placed only on God, the singular earring, your external actions, the bracelets, must be numerous, extended to everyone.
Virtues and good deeds are inseparable from love.
Right. The hands are covered in many shekels because the scope of active charity has to be vast and generous.
So the spiritual life demands this incredible paradox: absolute singularity in attention with the earrings, but immense multiplicity in action with the bracelets.
And that's the tension the soul has to master. The concentration of the inner life is on the one true source, but the overflow of that love has to manifest in tireless, broad, visible works.
And she accepts them, which means she's willing to embrace that equilibrium.
Yes. And this successful mission moves Prudence to genuine awe. In the text, the servant bows down and worships God, confessing his astonishment.
This is Prudence's big conversion moment, isn't it?
It really is. He followed faith blindly, and now he's amazed to find he was led by a direct path. Not a complex, winding road of human effort, but a straight line to the exact place he needed to be. He got more than he even hoped for.
He's marveling at how faith's method is so much better than his own reliance on foresight.
He's marveling at two things equally: how God arranged it all, the work of providence, and how faith acts so generously in, obscurity and uncertainty. This moment confirms for the servant and for the soul the absolute superiority of the path of rest over the path of complex calculation.
The logical mind, prudence, has finally submitted to the mysterious perfection of faith.
Which sets the stage for the final step. Section 5. The seal of union and consummation. Rebekah's family enters the picture. Laban, her brother, sees the gifts and invites the servant in.
Laban represents
what? He represents those good people who, when they hear about the pure inner path, feel an immediate desire to accept it. They're ready, they've prepared their hearts, they're devout, but they haven't reached union yet.
But the servant, prudence, shows the perfect priority of a soul deep in faith. Food is offered, and he refuses. I will not eat until I have told my business.
It's a beautiful allegorical detail. The faithful servant forgets his own needs, his own comforts. He's focused only on executing God's will. There's no rest, not even physical nourishment, until the spiritual mission is complete.
Then he gives his testimony, recounting Abraham's wealth, God's blessings, and exalting the path of faith. And he makes a point of saying faith gives everything to the inner life, Isaac.
Whose mother and nurse has perfected abandonment, Sarah. And this testimony, coming from someone who has just witnessed the divine arrangement firsthand, it carries an irresistible grace.
Her relatives can't refuse. They confess, this thing proceeds from the Lord.
It's a gentle, divine pressure. It forces their consent to release love from the complex path so she can unite with the life of abandonment.
And even though God is all-powerful, the source notes, he still wants the soul's full, free consent.
Yes, before she completely discards her former life, her father's house, and accepts this new pure path into the inner depths.
Moment of decision. Will you go with this man?
And Rebekah's simple, powerful reply, I will go. That phrase, the source says, perfectly expresses the state of a heart beginning to walk the path of faith.
Entire simplicity, unreserved willingness.
Exactly. No calculation, just complete surrender to the mysterious arrangement of providence.
Her family blesses her, wishing her to be the mother of thousands and to possess the gate of those who hate her.
Which symbolizes the immense fruitfulness granted to the soul when it's united with pure love. The union brings extraordinary grace and power. It ensures the path of faith will multiply and overcome all its spiritual adversaries. Love makes the inner path fruitful in the world.
And now we reach the final culmination, the union of Isaac and Rebekah. Isaac is already in the highest spiritual state. He's walking toward the well of the living and seeing.
Which means he is approaching the absolute source of God, where God alone is living and seeing everything. Isaac is living in this profound, intimate communication with God. He has emptied himself completely to be occupied by the divine.
And the timing, again, is significant. He meets her in the evening.
It reinforces that this perfect, pure union of the inner life and pure love is not a beginner's prize. It's the culmination, achieved only in the latter part of one's spiritual life after all the great labors and hardships.
Rebekah's final actions are so symbolic. She gets down from the camel.
Her final step off the active path and the rigor of the law.
And then covers her face with a veil.
The veil symbolizes fidelity, loyalty, and complete dedication before uniting with Isaac. She approaches the inner life having stripped away the active effort of the journey, and having veiled the self, ready for the sacred privacy of their union.
And here is the profound final synthesis of the whole story, Isaac's response. He doesn't linger on her beauty. He doesn't focus on any sensory enjoyment. He immediately brings her into his mother Sarah's tent.
This is it. This is the crucial, culminating insight of the entire source material. Sarah always represented complete abandonment. Isaac leads love, Rebekah directly into the path of complete abandonment.
So the essential teaching is that pure love isn't separate from absolute self-denial.
It must dwell within the tent of abandonment. The union has to be consecrated in the purity of that hidden, relinquished self.
So the inner life marries love, and their home is abandonment. If love tries to live anywhere else, the union isn't perfect.
It demonstrates that abandonment, even though its conscious effort died with Sarah, is the necessary and perpetual dwelling place for the soul united with God. Love confirms and stabilizes that state of poverty and rest.
And the result is comfort for Isaac. He finds comfort after the grief of his mother's death.
That earlier grief, remember, was the pain of losing the sense of abandonment, that conscious effort. It had become useless to him because he was now perfectly poor in God. But introducing pure love, who willingly lives in the hidden tent of abandonment, restores joy. The pain of the lost sensory effort is replaced by the profound, effortless joy of a perfect, pure union.
The inner life, having achieved its maturity, marries pure love, and together they live in that hidden state of abandonment, ready to be fruitful.
This narrative provides a full, just, a complete theological and psychological map of the soul's journey. And it makes it so clear that the greatest spiritual success involves the necessary surrender of what we thought was our most vital tool.
This entire deep dive, it shows us that the deepest union, the marriage of the inner life and pure love, requires this whole series of steps. The death of our perceptible efforts, the purification of our own prudence away from human calculation, and identifying love through its spontaneous generosity.
And ultimately, that love must reside in utter self-denial. The journey is always from complex activity to simple rest.
All the richness of faith, Abraham's wealth, it's only there to attract us to the profound poverty of pure rest.
And we can't forget that absolute prohibition that faith gave to prudence. Never bring the soul chosen for God's rest back to the complexity you were pulled from.
A constant battle against spiritual regression. We spent a lot of time on the gifts the servant gave Rebekah, the singular gold earrings for quiet listening, and the numerous gold bracelets for broad external action. It really embodies the core tension of the mystical life.
The balance is essential, but the priority, that single earring, tells the whole story. The ultimate act is listening.
So if you're applying these allegories to your own life, striving for that rest in God, consider this final provocative thought. The bracelets symbolize the active steps in your life, your external virtues, your good deeds. Are those numerous actions, your bracelets, unintentionally creating so much noise and self-focus that they are drowning out your ability to simply listen, your earrings, to the pure, solitary will of God?
The question for purified prudence is always, are my actions supporting my attention, or are they an elaborate distraction from the truth that lies in silence?
That's a wrap on the deep dive. We hope this has given you a clearer, more profound understanding of this extraordinary map.
For more spiritual resources, visit lokaken.ai.